it's in case at some point in the, the decades that this will be on YouTube, somebody gets enough interest to watch this. So I had a dispute with Amazon over a Kindle book of a tarot book by a tarot creator that I collect her decks and so forth. And she actually mentioned my terrible review of her book because of the Kindle issue. She mentioned it on her blog. So I emailed her and we started up this beautiful conversation. And Amazon eventually fixed the issue. I changed my review to a 5-star review of the book. And anyway, but no, I like actually made connection with this amazing tarot artist and author, the woman Mel Meline, who does the Tabula Mundi deck.
Yeah.
So yeah. So she and I had this whole conversation via email over several days, and she's really sweet. She's a great person, and she actually has a podcast. That's she and I believe her name's the last name is Chan, I believe. But anyway, she and her cohort, they have a podcast specifically about esoteric tarot.
Oh, cool.
And but their new book is fabulous. Deciphering the tarot. It's like 800 pages long. It's goes through every card, the Rider-Waite and the Crowley. And then
did you get a copy or no?
I got the Kindle copy. Amazon sold out completely. It's the number one tarot seller in tarot on Amazon. They were supposed to have more copies in on the 26th of March, so they probably do have more copies in right now. But no, she was fantastic. She was but when we talked about how much we love Ganesh and like. Yeah.
Would they ever? Do you think that she would ever? Would she be?
I doubt it. We are small potatoes. We are small.
You never know. You never know.
Yeah, she might like that kind of thing.
She might like a small
because I told her we had this class and that we use her deck. We refer to her deck often, and she just said that was sweet, but she didn't, say, "Oh, that's."
She's like,
I'm sure. Aww. I'm quite sure that she gets that response
all the time.
Right.
Sure. So. Well, I think it's really interesting because I've seen, I think our Rachel Pollack, who has done some really amazing interviews and you can see some of these interviews on YouTube. And I posted at least one of them.
Yeah.
And, I was always kind of surprised. I mean, I don't know what sort of relationship she's had with the reviewer, but the YouTube channel is relatively small following, that kind of thing. But has graciously sort of offered to do that. Sometimes folks will do that, but anyway, it is what it is. Whatever. That's really cool, though. I love that.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. I expect her to hate me because of my review, but she was like really just gracious and contacted Amazon, contacted the publisher, and all this stuff to resolve the issue. And for an author to do that, that's pretty impressive.
Still really involved in the whole process. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And kind of like I'm sitting here and I'm pulling cards from the decks that I brought over, and I realized that I may have to go get my glasses because I can't really see what some of these things are. I'll be right back.
All right, and of course I have a gallery. I show I prepare like an image gallery of different cards, and so
I saw that. I was looking at it before I signed on.
Yeah, that one's not. This one tonight is not as organized as I usually like to make them because I was kind of putting it together at the last minute, but I got it done. So, but.
So often, I mean, when we get together, see my glasses now I can see. Usually when we get together, we just kind of have this kind of informal chit chat beforehand. And then we just sort of launch into discussions about the Hermit. There are some questions. This is kind of the book that we have been sort of informally using. I don't know if you have a copy of it. If not, I think
It
last
is-
time we met, can you guys see that?
Uh-huh.
Last time we met, I think CJ, you said a friend of yours was trying to find it at Half Price Books and that there
Yeah,
weren't.
it
any
was someone
copies.
in our group and they
Yeah.
said not even in the state of Texas. So you have to get it on Amazon, but it's
It's
not
very
expensive.
cheap on Amazon, though. It's very and I get everything on Kindle. I mean, and of course, it's a Llewellyn book, and Llewellyn marks their Kindle books up way, I mean, but it's well worth it. It's what I'm trying to say. Like, I mean, you're going to spend on Kindle, you're going to spend like 16, 17 bucks, but it's well worth it. It's a very good book.
Yeah, I think she, I have two, at least, I have two. I know she's published other books, but I have two of Rachel Pollack's books, and I really like her books quite a bit. She goes into the folklore associated with the tarot. She really does a nice deep dive. Her background is in English, and so I think she does that really beautiful kind of analysis work that so many of our English folks and colleagues in English do, like you, Kurt, and she really provides that. So she gives you some really kind of juicy stuff that you can kind of dive into.
And her most famous book, 78 Degrees of Wisdom, is now an audiobook as well. So I have the audiobook for that also.
I'll try to listen to it from the library.
It's only through Audible.
Oh, it's not available yet. So in other forms.
I'm
Well,
sure they have
yeah.
her books at the library, Kurt. No?
Well, no, but I'm talking about the audiobook. The audiobook is only through Audible.
I'm practicing a new thing. Okay.
Yeah. Her books
Oh.
are in the library, yes, that is correct.
So
I gander a guess that they'll have the audio one, Kurt.
They will not. There's a whole thing about in the audiobook world right now about the Audible monopoly on a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Huh.
It's an Amazon company. It's part of the Amazon takeover of everything. Yes.
That's like page 120.
So I'm posting the questions that are actually at the back of the chapter on the Hermit in Pollack's book. And we usually kind of have these running in the background and we sort of informally answer them as we kind of move through before we then kind of get to the Kurt's gallery, where he then does a really nice kind of analysis. Presentation analysis of the various different kinds of elements that are represented in each of the cards. So
and CJ did a lot of research also.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just read the book, didn't you?
Well, I mean, that counts.
I read the book and I took notes.
We're amateurs here,
Listen, I mean, it's really informal. And so when we call ourselves kind of a study group, that's really what we are. So there isn't really, often what we do is we just all prepare on our own the best way that we can. We all have busy lives, that kind of thing. And we come with whatever knowledge that we have already with the cards, if we have any, and then experience we have with the cards, and then any other kind of book reading or study that you want to bring to it. So you can be as prepared as you want to be, or as long as everybody has some grace for the fact that we are just a group of folks who were drawn together by our love and desire to know more about the tarot. See it as a really beautiful kind of instrument for understanding more deeply this lived experience that we have as human beings as we move through our various worlds and we encounter others on their journey, I guess, right? So that's kind of where we're at. So just as far as kind of background. So please don't, whenever, So that's what I want to say. Does anybody want to add to that?
No wrong
That was
answers.
good.
Yeah.
No wrong answers. That's right. So, I have a question, and I guess when when you think of the tarot or we think of the Hermit card, like what comes to mind for you guys?
Trepidation in some way, because I mean, just traditionally speaking, the whole idea of being, kind of the city, the city as an SIDDHI, alone on the mountain, contemplating the nature of existence is not so not necessarily appealing to me, in the sense of I want to do that in my life, but I want to do that in the company of other individuals. I don't I often find myself in that isolated position, but I don't crave that per se. I mean, you know so there's a degree of frustration, fear, trepidation, sadness to that notion. But in terms of the interpretation, reading of the card itself, and the deeper meaning of it, that's not what the card's about. But just me as a person, when I think of being a hermit, I think of, like, hoarders, like the reality show.
You can't find the front door because it's been blocked off
Yeah,
from
yeah,
your hoarding, anxious management habit. Yeah.
yeah, so, but that's not what the card's about at all. But that's one of the cards that when I see it, I'm like, oh, really? You know? Yeah, yeah.
But I think in some of the newer decks, and I didn't pull very many, I just pulled 2. I think that the images would not emote that type of a response or feeling.
Well, and I think that's part of why the image on the card has evolved, because people see, as Mel Moline put it in her book, they see the Gandalf the Grey image, with the and if and I'm not a Tolkien expert in terms of, like, I can't speak Elvish and all this kind of stuff, but and there are people out there that can, believe me. But but like, the wizards were their own race. Like, they weren't they in Tolkien, and they were, like, completely misunderstood and misconstrued, and just basically did their own thing, and nobody they were never really, they were like in the Air Force, right? The reason that in Vietnam in the Air Force the officers slept in separate, like, barracks with, like, air conditioning and all that stuff, is because the officers had to be emotionally distant from the everybody else, because they were essentially making decisions about who was going to live and who was going to die. And so with you know so the newer image is, like, for example, we're going to see on the Light Seers tarot, which I think that's what CJ has in her hand right now.
I'm figuring
out
my tattoo.
We're going to see a different image, right? So that's a solitary figure, but that's not an ice. That's not
look how beautiful that is.
Yeah, and you think too, if you think of, like, Satguru, like in India, like, you think in a lot of the Satgurus are, like, for example, Amachi, who I took initiation from 20 something years ago. Her gift is she goes around the world hugging people, and so she occupies that role of guru, of teacher, of being removed, but at the same time is it has an openness and so forth. And I've known quote unquote, sannyasis or Satgurus kind of buck tradition in the sense of they let children hug them and climb all over them and stuff. And in some traditions, like you're not supposed to, they're supposed to be so removed that they can't touch a child, let alone a woman. Like
Yeah.
you're not supposed to you're not supposed to, and I know, gurus who hug women who, and so on, so yeah, I think the reason why the images are changing is because people are looking at that deeper meaning behind the card, which we will ultimately get into it. But they're looking at that and they're saying, how do we express that in such a way that gets away from this like old man in the gray costume,
I was gonna. I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm thinking about what Pollock had mentioned in her chapter, which is this idea that it's not a complete and total permanent sort of extraction from society, right? You just don't go to the mountaintop and like move there,
Right.
It's really a temporary, right? Because ultimately what you do is you come back to society, the group, whomever, and it is that sort of teacher role you take on, right? So you can't be away from society forever in order to be able to come back and to help society, right? So if you're looking at it that way, the same thing is like you can't be self reflexive and self-aware all of the time, right? There's no possible way that you can kind of maintain that all of the time and then be able to kind of get through your day and be able to function well in your culture group, in your groups, whatever those are, your work groups, your family group, your friendship group, that kind of thing. So I think that, when you were talking about this, I think understanding it's a fine line, right, between how long is too long.
Well, and that's, and that gets back, like a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and about an essential part of the hero's journey is that return to society and occupying multiple worlds simultaneously. And one of the things, and I apologize, CJ, if you were going to say this, but the hermit is sometimes called the evolved fool. So it's the fool at a certain point. And if I remember correctly, we're headed to another group of, we're like beginning another group of 7 cards, or we're like right towards the beginning. So we see that fool figure now has taken on different aspects, but I know for myself, like, I'm out of whack if I don't have my, chanting time, right? If I don't, like I managed to even work in something. I managed to even work in some chanting, like before I got on here, like between the time I did the card gallery, and then I jumped on here, I chanted some mantra, so that, we can look at the hermit in a sense as a metaphor for spiritual practice, right? For that connecting with, or realization of the divine within, if we want to say that, and so, yeah, that is very necessary, especially if you're in a position where you're sharing energy a lot. You have that energy has to be replenished in some way, and so like, going up on the mountaintop, so to speak, is a way to do, that. I mean, if we look historically,
the 4 of Swords has a kind of connection to the hermit, right? Where, that sort of must take respite right now, must sort of pull away, it sort of often gets referred to, associated with burnout, right? And when you're burned out, and sometimes the only way you can
that's a
heal
truce
from
card.
that.
That's a truce card, right? The 4 of Swords.
The 4 of Swords. It's the one where, and so, you have to at some point kind of move away in order to heal, in order to be able to come back and to engage again.
And apparently the King of Pentacles also. I read that.
The King of Pentacles. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's
What
like,
about the King of Pentacles?
it's related to the Hermit. Like it
I know
has
how.
Hermit qualities. I think because the King of Pentacles, he's a planner, right? Like he's a manifester, but he's very deliberate in his manifestation.
There was
And
a
so
book out
the
by
hermit is the strong silent type, basically. I mean, if actually the King of Pentacles is, and so with that, there's an element of that hermit energy that's there, right? Am I off? Am I completely off?
No, I think you're right on the target.
I'm asking Denise because I think she's deliberating here.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that, well, what it reminded me of was this idea. There was a book that came out, oh, I guess it's probably going on close to 10 years, maybe not quite that old, on introverts.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about, and I can't remember and my phone's in the other room.
Introvert world is foreign to me. I'm an Aquarius, but I'm a weird Aquarius. I'm weirder than most Aquarius. I'm weirder than most Aquarius. It's like even Aquarius look at me and they're like, "What the hell is this guy about?"
Are you more extroverted? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes, you're really extroverted, and so this idea of and I'm an ambivert, so I'm like I need both.
I'm kind of like that too, but I get like I had to do a 3-hour pre-doctoral where they basically just fire questions at you, and I loved it. That was one of the best experiences of my entire career. I felt I got energized by that.
You loved it. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, I think this idea that there was a survey of CEOs and where they placed on this introversion, extroversion kind of, spectrum, if you will. And it was, the results of this were really surprising because there were a large number of folks on those really high level positions who fell in that introversion part of that scale. And why, because this cult of personality really kind of emerged in the 1920s. The Dale Carnegie, sort of like this basically shifting to really highly valuing sort of extroversion in all areas to kind of exude or express confidence, right? So you ended up having a whole bunch of coursework and refashioning, retooling, what does it mean to be successful? And so that came out of Dale Carnegie's kind of work there. And so it was a really interesting to kind of think about it. But because we talked about the King of Pentacles a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the King of Pentacles ultimately is that person who is capable of creating and bringing about, there's no way, they're very rarely not successful in a way that we all recognize success, right? External success to look like. And so bringing this element here that there is a kind of introversion aspect to the King of Pentacles is really interesting because that really makes some sense, right? That somebody has to kind of go off, think through, come back, plan it all out, and then come back in and sort of present that to the world and make that happen. So that was a really long way of saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, what you just said.
Well, that's, and that's important too, because even, it's a good message for those CEO type people, those type A people, that, hey, you've got to, make sure that you're giving yourself that breathing room, whether it's go out in nature or whatever it may be, go take a nap, whatever you have to do. But yeah. And parents too, like, you gotta be able to do that as well.
Sorry, my mouth is full. I wanted to go back to that question that we asked that we started earlier, which is what does the Hermit evoke for you? I'm really like almost opposite of Kurt's, like Kurt's level of discomfort to some degree, if that's an accurate way to kind of describe what you were saying, Kurt.
Yeah. So
My
here's
level of comfort, and I am actually very comfortable with the Hermit. And I don't know if that's because I'm already an ambivert, but I know that when at various different points in your life, you can shift and change, right? You become more extroverted or more introverted. And one of my friends, who's a psychologist, was saying that oftentimes as we get older, we tend to become more introverted. That's not always true, but we can become much more introverted. So I'm more comfortable with the Hermit in a way that is weird. I probably, we call it my putter time. My putter time, my Denise time, my me time, whatever it is. And I need like freakishly long amounts of that. So it part of it is, it's that introspection, it's the reflection, it's the meditation, it's the journaling, it's the and if I don't do a certain amount of that after a while, you were saying that Kurt, you were saying that you're not you're not well, you're not right, you're not whatever it is. It is, if I have extended periods of that, there are weird like breakdowns in my, it is the most sort of utmost of self-neglect. It just comes, it's yeah. So I see it as a real opportunity to kind of do that sort of inward reflection. I don't know, there was in Pollock's description, she talked about the Hermit sort of in our modern Western culture, where the therapist kind of has taken on to some degree. There's sort of like can present a kind of hermit-like experience. And I don't think I've shared this with you guys before, but I've been in and out of therapy, like a total of like, I don't know, 12 years or something like that over my entire adult life. And
well, see, I'm more
I've done a lot
comfortable
of
with
therapy
that.
work. Yeah.
I'm more comfortable with that because that's like two people.
Two people. Yeah. There's a guide and there's somebody that's guiding you through. Yeah.
I guess the bottom line with that isolation with me is that for me, when I find myself like that, it feels to me as if I've failed. And I know that's my own issue. I know that's my own issues. But,
like you failed?
Yes.
Why is that? When you feel like what?
When, like if I'm alone, I feel like I've failed, like I haven't done something right. Like if I don't have, a significant other with whom I'm sharing my heart that's with me, on some level, or if I'm
but even if you have that, you still have to have your hermit time.
True, but I'm talking about like I'm talking about like over extended periods of time, and I know that's my own issue.
My dear friend John used to say that all he wanted more from a relationship, because he had long extensions of time. So he was married, got divorced, and then had some really significant relationships, like in his 20s and his 30s. And then all through his like mid 30s, all through his 40s, for almost 15 years, he didn't have a relationship that he was in. And all he wanted was love and intimacy, somebody he could share love and intimacy with. And lo and behold, in his mid 50s, he found that, right? But he was in that hermit stage for a really, really long time, and was beginning to, and this is a person who has, who's had a very, fascinating relationship. He's Christian, and a fascinating relationship with his understanding of God, and at times was deeply angry and frustrated by the fact that there was not he didn't understand, right? And so he's like one of my dearest friends. And I sat back and I sort of observed that and the struggles that the struggle right? I can understand. I said, there was a sense of failure that he articulated. And I think that ultimately, the way he looks at it now and the way his faith frames it is that it wasn't until then that he was ready to actually then be in. So he
Right.
had to do that hermit's journey for a really long time
Right.
before things fell into place enough that he was able to then be in a long-term relationship that will be the relationship that most likely that will be his final relationship, right? They're
Right.
married now. He's in fact, he got the whole thing. He didn't have any children, married. He's got grandkids now. You know what I mean? So there was this whole and coming together in that relationship. It's not that he didn't necessarily want children or, he got all of it. Right. So it was a really interesting, and he'll talk to you. He read the tarot for a long time. In fact, he and I
Well,
often
tarot
did
is
the tarot
Christian
for each
ultimately.
other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the tarot system is Christian ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we would
Yeah.
read tarot for each other, right? We met each other in
Yeah.
graduate school. This is where we sort of forged our bond.
Golden Dawn is Christian, I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I mean, I've changed my focus, if you will. I don't, I'm being careful not to just do any relationship. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah, you have to really picky too as you get older. I think.
relationship when they dissolve are not, it's not easy.
Mhm.
So that's
Well, that's that wisdom aspect, I think, of the hermit, right?
right.
As you
But
move in and out of these experiences,
I'm more comfortable
develop.
with the therapist model. That's a dialogue. I can do a dialogue,
You can do a dialogue with an external person who can sort of volley back and forth or help you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
often it's really interesting because depending on the therapist's particular approach, they may not say anything in a
No, they
session.
may not.
But it's interesting, but that presence there at least is maybe more comforting.
I have a dear friend who pays a lot of money. He has, his income is not a lot of money, but he pays a lot of money for a Jungian therapist,
Mm-hmm.
specifically a Jungian therapist. Because yeah,
I have a friend who's training to become a Jungian therapist.
the Jungian therapy is not covered on insurance. But
it's actually, if you do you can do Jungian approach within a traditional therapy model, I guess.
Oh, you got your dessert. Oh, awesome. That's giving me ideas for CJ. Do you want to go through your, we're still doing the questions. I talk way too much. That's why.
That's okay. Yeah, I think that I love these questions here. Our Hermit Wisdom reading. What is the Hermit's secret? What is the Hermit's light? What does it reveal? And what questions does the Hermit want us to ask? So I'd be curious to hear from other folks, whichever these questions is sort of like resonating with you right now, to sort of speak about your experience with the Hermit or your thoughts about the Hermit in relationship to one of those first 4 questions in the chat. Has anybody experienced, well, I just asked you to do that, so I'm going to hush up with my other question.
So I have people texting me for real estate right now that it's not even, it's aggravating. So, what did you say? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Of those 4 questions of, my mouth is full.
What is the Hermit's secret? What is the Hermit's light?
Yeah.
And you're asking us to answer them or what?
Yeah, if there's one of these questions that resonates with you right now, go ahead and speak to that. So,
Oh, well, the hermit's light is internal. It's internal and it's the divine communion with the sacred, oh, great spirit, the divine, it's that sacred union of communing with the divine internally, which interestingly enough, when you're able to hold that in your body rather than just acknowledge it, but actually hold it, you create this whole, if you will, container to allow, in this case, like truths to come in or be brought to light for you, I would say. That you already know. I mean, it's a gnosis thing. It's a knowing.
and so it's something you already know if you sit still long enough and listen, that knowing will come through. Is it that kind of a thing? Am I understanding you correctly?
Unless you're going on like, you're a shaman on a vision quest, which Rachel Pollack talks about.
Right. And you're kind of seeking that knowledge.
And either way, it's still coming from inside you. I mean, but it's not just you. It in my personal interpretation, it is you communing with the divine internally.
Yeah.
So someone who's not on a spiritual path, let's say, I don't think is going to get the same thing out of their hermit moment that you and I are going to get out of our hermit moment.
Right. And so it's not like there aren't opportunities for that. One could say to some degree that this pandemic year has been a hermiting year.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The people that I've known, I've mentioned this before, the people that I've talked to that have benefited the most from it and who are actually far healthier than they were previous to the pandemic are swamis or renunciates, because they've completely embraced you mean I don't have to travel around the world and, stay stay in one place for 2 days and get, so
Own bodies.
right, exactly. And and other people who have completely retrained for a different job that because their career that they had before the pandemic no longer exists, and things of that nature. I mean, this group started in the pandemic also. This is in some ways is probably is an outgrowth of some of the desire within the pandemic to connect and to think about different things. I think of the hermit's light is well, it's the heart chakra, right? It's a Tipperet in the Kabbalah, right? It's the heart chakra. Or in Christian terms, that would be Christ.
The hermit is the heart chakra.
The light.
Oh, the light.
The hermit shows the way shows the way of the light. Hermit acts kind of like a bridge or a door, showing the way of the light to the lower realms. Basically, the role of the hermit is to help those who are not quite as far on their spiritual journey to advance themselves by way of being able to glimpse the light. And like, for example,
that's what I was going to ask you, guys.
Which is interesting because Pollock was talking about that this idea that you have to climb high enough in order to see the light, that the hermit is in fact holding the light out for others. Right. So it's a holding, well, it's both. The other could be the self, right? And physically, like literally others, right? But that idea that you have to use you have to use the commitment and the endurance of the strength card in order to be able to
Mhm.
stay steady enough or climb high enough, actually climb high enough to be able to see the light and what it reveals, what it reveals.
You
So
know, I'm thinking about Martin Luther King and the "I Have a Dream" speech. You know, he's Mahalia Jackson screams out, "Tell him about the dream," and then he starts telling him about the dream, and by talking about this dream that he has of everybody getting along and essentially bettering each other by way of mutual understanding and so forth. He's putting that possibility of that reality out there for other people to take up and for other people to follow, well knowing he's not going to see it in his own lifetime, right? Knowing he's not, and so the hermit, in a way, also occupies that space too. That and if we think of like Merlin, we think of figures like that. I mean, Merlin gets trapped in a cave for, thousands upon thousands of years and does not see any of the results of quote unquote King Arthur and all that, and so that's interesting. I mean, we can look at like Moses going off by himself and seeing the burning bush. We can look at Muhammad, going in the cave, quite literally going off in a cave, and being told to recite, just recite. And
I mean, for mainstream Christians, how about
Yeah.
Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane?
right, that was going to be where I went next. Yeah. And the hermit too, like I saw this post on Facebook the other day that said, my dear friend of mine.
and Hecate, right?
Mhm.
She holds the light so that way you can see that which needs to be. She's not going to she's going to hold the light in the dark shadow place so that way you can see that which needs to be addressed.
And Isis too, the idea of focusing that Isis can temper and focus the light of Ra, that the light of Ra, for most of us, we would burn up, essentially we would disintegrate if we were to see the full light of Ra, but Isis can focus that, and be that second person there. That's two things, and I'll shut up. One is, now I saw this meme on Facebook the other day. It said that most people don't understand that connecting with your inner self is like baptizing a cat.
All right.
That it's it's not all roses, and it's tough, it's difficult, it's painful often, and that's what I get. I love CJ's point about the Garden of Gethsemane, because that's painful. I mean, he's crying blood, he's in so much anguish, and he's like, he says, take this cup from me, find somebody else to do it. But he already has the strength of the strength card, so he says, but if this is my if this is what has to happen, then let it happen, but please find somebody else. And
This
so
shit's hard.
Yeah,
this shit is hard.
Exactly. Especially,
and hard.
One of my
That's the heart chakra.
one of my dear friends.
Say that one more time, Denise.
This shit is hard. And it hits your heart. That's the heart chakra cracking open. Right?
Yeah. And then, and Mother Amma, one of her teachings is that when you receive a mantra, such the traditional method, and this is like across all forms of Sanatana Dharma, even though the theology is different, the method of reception of a mantra is the same. The guru whispers the mantra in the ear, and so that it actually goes from guru to disciple, and it's like the Shakti or energy of the guru is in that mantra, and so that the metaphor is that when you when you add yogurt to milk, eventually it will become yogurt. Like it will, and so the idea is that the longer the more you chant the mantra, right, the more you begin to imbibe the qualities of the guru, the sat qualities, and so that's also the role of the hermit in that way. But you still have to do the work. Like you can't, it's things. But
yeah, because there's some things that only you can do.
Yeah.
Right. There's some things that only you can heal. So I will talk to you about, I'll share this with you. I was at the store the other day. I was at Walmart. And I don't know why, maybe I know why now, but I was like, oh, no, it was getting late. And I'm like, I don't need to go to Walmart now. I'll just kind of go tomorrow. But my gut was like, no, go now. Okay, I don't know. It's 9 o'clock at night. I'm going to the Walmart, right? I'm going to run my errand. So I do it. And I said, well, I guess I'll figure out eventually why it is my gut is screaming so loudly, you need to go to Walmart now. So I go through Walmart, do my thing, get my shopping list, that kind of thing. Nothing really seems to be like, jumping out at me. That's like, okay, this is the reason why my gut said you have to really go to Walmart. Until I turn the corner and I see this display of all of these Easter themed stuffed animals. Right. And I stopped in my tracks and I was like, what? It was that moment where it's like, oh my God. And I didn't even understand it. Right. So there was this one bunny, and I'll come and I'll show it to you. This one little bunny just sort of like was like, look at me, pick me. And I picked it up and it was nice and fluffy and soft. And it was like all of $3, right? And I'm like, you're so cute. And I just, was like, kind of like, I fell in love with this little bunny. And I said, but no, I'm going to put you back. Right? Sort of like my adult rational self was like, I'm going to put you back. I don't need a bunny now. I don't need to do that. And inside, like this little kid was just jumping up and down and said, no, I need this bunny now. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna put you in the basket with me and I'm gonna finish my shopping list and then come back. And I bought that bunny and I brought it home and she's on my altar right now. And I realized later that this was an inner child moment. This is what that was. This was a childlike moment in my life where, for whatever reason, out of probably just adult neglect sometimes of our own kind of childlike desires, right? Because we usually beat those out of ourselves after a certain age, figuratively and sometimes literally, right? And it became so, it was a moment where I'm convinced that the reason why I had to go to Walmart was because of that bunny. All the other list stuff had nothing really to do with it at all, but it was there in that particular moment with that particular rabbit. And so I need to go work with rabbit as a sort of symbol and dive a little bit deeper into that. But I think it was definitely a childlike inner heart chakra, heart healing, child healing, wounds, traumatic wounds that we probably all have to some extent, no matter how well-meaning and how well our parents were trying to raise us, right? Or how sort of conscious we're trying to raise, being consciously aware of how we're trying to raise others, children. I don't have children of my own, but I have a nephew whose mother died when he was 12. And essentially I have served as his surrogate mother since then. Right. And so making sure that, I think in that moment, it became all about that. So this moment, and I kind of lost the reason why I was telling you this story, other than to say that listening to that sense of the heart, that was a kind of light and inner wisdom. And then this sort of rationalized adult rational adult kind of aspect that we all develop in order to survive in a grown-up world, right? Was trying to say, no, you don't need that, put that back.
And it ties into what one of the things that Malene says in her book, associated with the hermit is don't hide your light under a bushel. So that when we deny that inner child, we're in essence hiding our light under a bushel.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It was just it. Yes,
Yeah.
and so in this sense, I think that what does the hermit want me to see under a it's question number 4 under a hermit personal reading. In that moment, I think it wanted me to see that there was a child, an inner child, right? We call inner child is the language we use now, right? A younger version of me, the youngest version of me, the one where a small little stuffed bunny rabbit was just lit up my world, right? So probably about age 3, age 4, age 5, something, right?
But that's when our personality forms, right? That don't psychologists say our personality essentially forms by the age of 5, right?
By the age of 7.
Yeah. Some
sort of your temperament, I think, is your temperament is kind of like you're born with temperament, but then personality is ever evolving as you age. This is what my friends who are psychologists have shared with me, right?
That's why childhood trauma is so hard to shake, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
I mean,
what it does to the brain.
Mm-hmm.
There more and more research is being, as they're doing more and more research about trauma and its impact on the brain, right?
And so a trauma survivor probably gets a strong meaning out of the hermit, this idea of the light that within that whatever happens externally, it has happened externally, that light, that essence is still there.
Yeah.
And I think that person is everyone. I don't know that there's anybody without trauma.
Yeah. There's some form of trauma. I mean, even if it's accidental, right? It's a sort of accidental trauma. Some, especially if you're just sensitive, right? Sort of your wiring makes you more sensitive. So I was, as a sensitive kid, right? I mean, I wasn't sensitive to things like light or sound or anything like that, but I was always very sensitive to emotions and being able to sort of read the emotions of a room. And, part of that is that, my mother was very, doing the best that she knew how to do. I deeply believe that now. Earlier I did 12 years of therapy, right? But I deeply believe that now. And when you have, I think, very young folks who are raising children who don't always know, right? Who was I talking to the other day? Yeah, one of my colleagues at work who's a psychologist. She has a 2-year-old, and she's like, oh my gosh. And she's closing in on 40, right? She's almost 40, or maybe she is 40 now at this point. She's like, she says, I need the energy of my 20-year-old self. She says, but I didn't have the wisdom to help raise a child until I was a little bit older, right? So she's sort of like, she says, this raising children is for young people, youthful young people. And I said, yeah, I mean, this is every sort of accounting that I have read by folks who've adopted like much older, like in their 50s, their 40s and their 50s and much older. And they talk about that sort of energy, it's like they don't have the energy they had. Because children are really very, I think, they're very, very, they require a lot of focus, right? They just require a lot of focus, a lot of energy. I would say our parents on the call could attest to that, probably tell us stories about that.
Well, and I'm laughing too, not only because of that, but because I know adults like that. So this one friend of mine that comes over here, like literally he has to be supervised at all times. Like Denise, he touches everything. He moves things. He picks everything up.
Oh,
He
no.
opens drawers. He opens things. He looks. And I'm like, I've told him you're like a 5-year-old and I can't supervise you all the time.
Is he an Indian puppy?
It's like,
Huh?
don't put your fingers in the sockets, whatever you do.
It's my massage therapist friend that brought me the massage table.
Mm.
But and he's normal. There's nothing wrong with him. Like he doesn't have a disorder or anything, but like,
He's just
I'm
kind of
like-
that sort of fidgety.
Well, he's a massage therapist, so he's obviously very tactile.
Tactile,
right? He
yeah.
has to touch
Yes.
things.
So it's constant. And I'm thinking, man, Denise, kids are like that. But when adults are like that too, I want to pet myself.
It's
Well,
like,
see, and CJ's been to my place, so she knows that I'm that way about my dog.
mhm.
Like my relationship with my dog is very, very, like when I'm with my dog, I'm like, I'm like a 10-year-old, it's just like, and my
So I feel
dog,
like we're off on a tangent. Like, what are we discussing? What does the hermit want me to see?
the
Yeah.
light, yeah,
That was
Okay.
for me. That was the question that resonated.
And that's what
with me.
happened to you last night.
Yeah, it happened to me over the weekend. Like it happened on Saturday. I'll go get the little bunny here in a second. I now have like a little sort of inner child
Collection.
well, kind of like a little part of my altar where I just put the little bunny. The bunny's on my altar, and
Yeah.
found a little journal. And what I decided to do was to start like have weekly sort of letters to my little inner girl.
oh, that's fantastic.
And just so I have this little journal that I got that's very girly,
That's
that really appeared to
wonderful.
me, that sort of young and just sort of these
Mhm.
little letters and everything from, I mean, because oftentimes what happens, I never would have figured this out on my own had it not been for a therapist who talked to me about why it is that I sort of panicked over things that I don't know about how to do at my job. Nobody showed me how to do it, but I have this weird kind of panic. There's no like manual to show me, or whatever, but I feel like it's my response. You can only, ask your colleagues so many questions to help you, that kind of thing. And so we just sort of recognized that that was my little girl who was showing up on the scene thinking she had to solve the problem, and she didn't have the skills to be able to solve the problem yet. And then there was this really useful moment, very useful sort of like self-soothing that said, it's okay, you don't have to worry about this, you go play, I'll go ahead and solve the problem. And so it was this weird kind of, I call it weird, but maybe not so weird at all, where this little kid inside is thinking they have to solve the problem and they don't have the skill set or the tool set to be able to do it. But as an adult, that you can develop a tool set and you can develop the skill set to be able to solve that series of problems. And so just that distinction was so incredibly powerful. And when I ever find myself in that kind of circumstance again, and I'm self-aware in that moment, because I'm not always, but when I can be, to sit down and sort of tell myself as a self-soothing technique is to speak directly to her and say, it's okay, you go and play, I'll figure this out, and I was like, at first it sounds kind of silly, but then you do it and you're like, it makes all the difference. It creates that sort of reframing that helps me to be able to then go back in and get back into my adult capable, remembering that every problem is resolvable. We can figure some way, we can come up with some tools, we can figure out resources to be able to solve this.
Yeah, that's what I get. I mean, and going back to the whole, self-reflexive mode or whatever of the hermit, and that's what I get from chanting mantras, because when I get into that super anxious state of mind, or whatever, I can think, oh well, I have this goddess. This goddess has my back. This God has my back. I asked for their help today, and what so it's like I have my transcendental team, if you will, that's and that's not the most, I guess, spiritually advanced position to take, but I do find it comforting.
But I think that's that connection again to
Yeah.
that heart chakra. What is it that you're
Mhm.
seeing in that illuminating that?
Mhm.
And so I'm looking This is from
Oh, cool. Oh, that's yes, yes.
the
I
Everyday
love that.
Enchantment Tarot. Can you guys see that? Let me
Can
make
you
that.
see that, Heather?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
lovely.
So this is this beautiful, you see the book, a kind of
Mhm.
book filled with knowledge.
The dog is perfect.
The dog is beautiful. And then just this sort of sitting there in deep contemplation, perhaps in maybe just finished with a mantra,
Yeah,
um,
right.
you
Mhm.
know, in that post sort of mantra state where
Yeah.
I love that the sort of light, the lamp light is that sort of
Mhm.
modern take of the actual kind of the other version of the lamp, a different version of the lamp. And or this one, this little guy is from the Kauai Tarot. And it's a very simple, and this is very childlike. The way they let me show you the back of the card. This
Oh, cute.
deeply appeals
Mhm.
to, I think it's a very sweet kind of almost, I think, a very feminine feel. But if you can see, I think the illustrator is Diana Lopez, but it's very here's kind, it's called the
Oh, cute.
Kauai.
That's
Isn't
cute.
that sweet? And it's, I think she says it's like the cutest, I think the little tagline is the cutest tarot you'll ever meet or something like
That
that.
is cute.
Oh, that is cute.
It is very sweet and very cute. And probably, you know, it cuts right to the point, right? So this
Mhm.
sort of light in the dark, right? Finding the light in the dark.
And
And
really, from a sociological standpoint, that's the beginning of civilization, right? That's the beginning is people essentially trying to keep themselves warm in the dark,
yeah,
and that's the beginning of myth making, and that's the beginning of storytelling is, trying to tell your children, no, don't go out in the dark away from the light because, animals will get you, and
this, you're safer as you move
yeah,
towards the light
yeah.
as opposed to further away from it. And then of
Mhm.
course this is our classic
Oh, that's a
Rider
really
Waite.
nice version of the Rider
Mhm.
Waite
Yeah.
Hermit. Yeah.
And so, you know, all of there's Gandalf.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I have a friend who that's her dissertation is on Tolkien. So
Oh, that's
she would
awesome.
be, yeah, she would be a fun person to talk to. You may know her, Carol Bernard. She's also,
No,
no, you
I
don't know her.
don't.
I think you'd
I
enjoy.
was on a talk with some LGBTQ plus Nordic pagans, and they were all kind of groaning over the Catholicism in Tolkien.
Mm,
Because Tolkien is heavily, heavily Catholic, but
yes.
yeah. But so is the tarot. I mean, tarot is the tarot is Gnostic. Actually, the tarot pokes fun at
Mhm.
Catholicism quite a bit.
So this is from
Ooh,
Tarot of the Divine,
oh yeah,
and it's a druid figure and a white stag, and it's a Celtic myth. The elusive white stag encourages people to drop everything and pursue spirituality. Right.
so it's a different take on, it's a spiritual take on the hunt for the white heart, the white yeah,
It's so unique that you have to drop it all in order to be able
yeah.
to do it. Yeah. So it's this is quite beautiful. This is the one, this is the deck that's based on world folklore, different myths and mythologies. And so it's really a fun deck.
The price has dropped on that recently.
I
The
got this
Wow.
deck for like $15.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
yeah,
down. It's not quite that low, but it's down. It's down from what
yeah,
it was.
yeah. I was shocked, and there were a couple of readers on Terra on YouTube. Well, there was one reader in particular, and she was using this deck, and I was like, "That's just beautiful." Here's the back.
And they're matte, right? I mean, the cards are,
Yeah, they're kind of a linen, sort of
yeah.
a linen texture,
Yes.
but they're not real shiny. So yeah, they're that kind of matte.
Kurt, you have that
I
deck.
have that one. Yeah, you were playing with it when you
Yeah.
were when you're yeah when you're here.
And so Kurt, do you want to pull up your
Yeah. Let me,
gallery? We can start kind of working through that a little bit.
okay, here we are.
And then Heather, you can like hang with us as long as you need to. Sometimes, you know, I mean, we just kind of we go on sometimes and we're like, oh, what time is it? So you do what you, I mean, we get onto rolls here and then we're like, oh, wow, what time is it? We lose track of time. So,
Yeah,
you know,
we would get terrible student reviews, you know, if we had
we
this.
don't do this in our classes.
It'd be like, yeah, we're supposed to end.
My students are like, but miss, right? My college students are like, but miss, class is over. It was over 2 minutes ago. And I'm like, bah, I'm sorry. I'll let you know. We don't do that very often. So I'll give you 2 minutes somewhere else.
So this is the light series, and the reason that she ended up first is because I was having technical difficulties and my photos wouldn't download. But she ended up first. But I just love this card. You know, because we were talking about earlier that, you know, getting away from the image of the old man in the cloak. This definitely does that. This I find really interesting. She has the lamp here, and then she has the light shining from herself here.
I love that though. That's like, I've used the lamp to get me to this point, and then
It's
like, her light.
profound.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I love the softness of the colors. I love but her face, there's a determination on her face. I mean, we can't see her face because she's not, I mean, we can't see we see her kind of in to the side there, but you can tell she's very determined. And she's, in fact, the light is elevated. I mean, she's like floating, right?
She is floating, right? She's not sitting on that mountain, not that we can tell anyway.
No, she's
above it.
floating in front of it or above it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That is really cool.
Light Seers is a really cool deck. I like it more and more. every time.
Unfortunately, that is not a cheap deck.
It's not. I think I got mine during the summer, and I think I may have gotten it for like $20.
I paid 24, I think, something like that. Yeah.
It's gone up.
It's good, right? That means they probably have fewer in stock. This deck, actually, our next deck has gone up too, but only by like $2. But this is from the Wildwood, I believe, and here we have the Hooded Man, which is like the Rider White, but also not. Yeah.
Mhm.
And and speaking of Tolkien, we have the bird here, and of course in the Hobbit, you know, it's the bird that tells Bilbo where Smaug's weakness is, where the scale has fallen off of Smaug, and or no, Bilbo tells that to the bird, and then the bird tells it to Bard the bowman, and then Bard the bowman is able to slay the dragon. And of course, slaying the dragon is a major metaphor, you know, for conquering one's fears and obstacles, etc. So rather than the dog, we have, in this one we don't have a dog, or we don't have an animal, so that's interesting. But and I guess we don't here in the this is the Llewellyn Classic. And the whole point of the Llewellyn Classic was to take the traditional images and put more movement in them. And so we have the Hermit. I mean, he's kind of he's gonna expose his poor legs, you know, exposing his legs to the cold. Apparently, he shaved his legs.
And I love those sandals. I would wear those.
You know,
I would in a heartbeat. I would be all about those sandals. I love them.
But it's interesting, you know, we have the 6-pointed star, which is, of course, I believe it I believe it corresponds to the heart chakra, but it's also that this corresponds interestingly to Ganesh as well. I don't think that was
The
intended.
6-pointed star.
I believe so, but I don't think
And
it,
isn't that the same as the Star of David too?
it is. Yeah, 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 it is.
Well, and I was going to ask y'all about that because Rachel Pollack mentions that in the book about the 6-pointed star. She says, Waite designed the writer version open, meaning the lantern was open instead of closed.
Mhm.
And we can see the light in the form of a 6-pointed star. He doesn't hold it for himself, but others. The Waite describes his basic lesson as where I am, there you also may be. But I wasn't, the 6-pointed star, what is that supposed to mean to us?
So the sixth chakra, or I'm sorry, yeah, the sixth chakra is the heart chakra.
Your heart chakra?
Or I'm sorry. The sixth sphere on the tree of life is Tippereth, which corresponds with beauty, and it corresponds with Christ. It corresponds with Horus. It corresponds with these divine sun figures, right? Which in the chakra system corresponds with the heart chakra. The heart chakra is not the sixth chakra, but rather Tippereth is the sixth sphere on the tree of life, and that's what it corresponds to. It corresponds to Tippereth.
How do you spell that? Tippereth?
Don't ask me how to spell it.
Tippereth?
Tippereth. Yeah.
ETH. Tippereth is the sixth what?
Is
Sphere?
the sixth sphere on the tree of life. Yeah. And the Hebrew letter that corresponds with the hermit is Yod, as in Yad-He-Vav-He or Yad-He-Vav-He, or Yahweh. And the Yod is the first syllable in the ultimate name of the divine in Hebrew. And it's shaped like a sperm. It's shaped like and that's significant in that with the hermit you have the seed of the light. You have the seed of the light. And so, yeah, the hermit is where the hermit is, and he's shining the light out so that those who can see the light, those who have eyes, let them see, those who have ears, let them hear, right? Those who can see the light can then follow. But that sperm cell is another one of these emblems of the beginning of creativity, right? The beginning of that, ultimately showing the way to the beauty, showing the way to the heart chakra, showing the way to Christ or to Horus or to these sun with a small S-O-N gods, right? Let's see. Now, I've never really done, this was from a tarot sampler. I'm not familiar with this deck at all, but I like that image.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I know that's all I just kept thinking in my head.
Wow.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's a woman.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And she's using the light for her own warmth too.
Mhm.
Well, I almost see her as protecting it.
Oh, you're right. That's
She's
wonderful.
she's like in a guarding, like nurturing, guarding, motherly
Oh crap!
mode.
She's the Virgin Mary, right? I
Yeah.
mean, if the light is Christ, she's the Virgin Mary, right? She's
Yes.
protecting
The moment you said that, I was like, oh yeah.
yeah, that's wonderful, CJ. That's awesome. Thank you. I would not have gotten that. Yeah, she's protecting. Yeah, she's like, you're not going to take you're going to take my light from me.
Well, the water is going to extinguish the flame if she doesn't guard it with her own physical body, her
Oh, that's
vessel.
water. Okay, I was thinking it was ice. Okay, yeah. Yeah, okay.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
It is water. No, it's water. You're right. Because if you look here, so the hermit is not only in the position of illuminating or broadcasting the light, shining the light, but also protecting the light.
Yeah.
Well, because you have to protect the mysteries, because these are mysteries. This is a gnosis that you're bringing back to share, and it's not something to be taken lightly.
Although this next hermit card is
I
pretty
know,
light.
I know.
Is pretty light. I love it. I love it. So basically they're saying the hermit's the pothead, like
Yeah.
the crazy, and all of us have known people like this. They're just like, strung out on pot or strung out on something, but they come up with profound shit.
Right. I was going to say they come up with these sort of otherworldly ideas that you're.
Yeah.
It's only through that altered state that they were really able to kind of zero in on that solution or that idea.
Yeah. Because koalas are high all the freaking time. I mean, that's basically how they spend their lives. I often think like the hardcore stoners come back as koalas or vice versa.
I know a few that may come back as koalas. Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad life provided you have enough eucalyptus, I guess.
Yeah.
And then this just shows the hermit as a door.
Well, and what's interesting is there's 5 keys there. So I don't know what the symbolism is of 5 there, but I've counted 5 keys, and there's 1 keyhole in the door. And then there's the face of the hermit, I guess, in the door.
So I don't know why, but I just thought of Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade when he comes up to the, to the specter of the night that's guarding all the cups, and he has to pick which cup is the actual cup of Christ, and there's all these different cups, and he of course picks the simplest one, and he says, "This is the carpenter's cup," and he was right. So it could be that we all have the choice of picking different keys, picking different possibilities, but only certain keys will actually open the door.
I think that's the good tarot. Yes.
That is, yeah, that's the good tarot. Yeah.
So I have the book for that.
Oh, cool.
I'll go grab it while y'all talk.
It also kind of reminds me of, with the face on the door and everything, it kind of reminds me of like a Jim Henson-esque kind of thing, like Labyrinth or, yeah. There is a Labyrinth Tarot coming out. I've pre-ordered it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Is that, where did you pre-order it?
Amazon.
On Amazon?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, these are just really small blurps in here. They don't go into great detail.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even talk about any of that. It just says it's a timeout. It's necessary to take time out for regrouping, for introspection. It's a temporary experience, but necessary for growth. When I step back, retreat, regroup, and renew, I have a clear perspective on everything in my life. And that's all it says.
But that doesn't even address what's in the image, man. Okay.
We are on the good tarot, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely
that's
right.
All it said.
Yeah,
That's
you're
it.
absolutely right. No, because I've read some of the descriptions in that book, and they're pretty basic. I mean, they can be affirmative as well, like,
but one of those keys has to fit that keyhole.
Right. But the only way you're going to figure that out is if you step back and you think about, and you put everything into perspective, or maybe
I just want to grab all 5 keys and try them all.
But maybe that's what the message is that you have to take the time to try all the keys. maybe that's it, you know.
Interesting.
I mean, you know, I used to one of my friends used to say that she was very thorough in figuring in the exploration of partners before she settled on, you know, the partner that she tried all the keys essentially before she settled on, you know, the partner that she ended up with. So
Doesn't everybody?
not everybody, and that's I can tell you about all kinds of Southern Baptists are not the only people that, you know, deny the expression of human sexuality. I love this. This is like my favorite hermit card right here, the storyteller.
That's gorgeous.
That's beautiful. That's from the Chrysalis deck.
Oh, I know. I love that deck.
That's just so beautiful to me. And that's yeah.
I'm loving the next one too, but I don't know what deck it's from.
This is from the Mythic. So this is the Greek one, the Greek deck. And that's Kronos. That's Kronos, the god of time.
Oh, interesting. Time. That rings a bell. Something in this book, she talked about time. That somebody holds an hourglass in their hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of that ringing a bell to you?
It's not ringing a bell offhand, but you know. But the card does have something to do traditionally with the journey to Tartarus into the underworld, or potentially, you know, relating to, because the Hermit astrologically is also related to Virgo, or the Virgin, which is why
she talks about it relating to Saturn in here.
Well, Saturn is Kronos. That's Saturn. That's who that is. But M.M. Moline talks about it relating to Virgo, which is why, I mean, that's another reason why we saw the Virgin Mary connection there too, because the connotation is human sexuality or in human sensuality, but not sex itself, not the physical act of sex itself is what we.
No, but it's that sexual energy that you have to go find and dig for, that you bring back and can create with.
Right. That's exactly it.
This is the artist journey here. It's very creative because you're having to dig into your own reservoir of creativity.
Yeah, and you know, and you look at, like, for example, like Neil Gaiman, when he wrote American Gods, he wrote a lot of that book in Tori Amos's house. Like he walled it
right as with her as his muse.
Yeah, he she in Sandman, right, which he did before American Gods, she was Death. I mean, he based the character Death on her. Like Death's looks, Death's everything was based on Tori Amos. They were not intimate. They were just really close friends. But not, you know, at least anything that either one of them have revealed, but publicly. Not that I know them, because I surely don't, but
well, so on your Mythic deck, I like that it's not a lantern, it's some type of a vessel.
It's an oil lamp. Yeah.
There's no glass on it.
No, there's no glass. Okay, yeah, you're right. It may not be.
It's an oil lamp. Obviously, there's oil in there, or else would the flame be burning? But
it is an oil. it's a traditional lamp like you would use for puja or something like that in
But I want to know why he's carrying the Grim Reaper scythe or whatever it is.
because that's the emblem of Saturn. That's the emblem of Kronos. That, you know, time is a reaper.
Oh, the Reaper. And then you've got the Raven.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, keep going.
Which you've got ravens here too.
Yep. And then you've got some kind of bird at the bottom of there too.
Oh
Like
yeah,
a phoenix, possibly.
it's probably a phoenix because this is
Because when you go in and then you come back
Come
out and
out.
rise again.
and that's the theme of the overall theme of this deck is the chrysalis, the idea of
Right.
being cocooned and then coming out.
Rebirth.
Yeah.
Right.
And so yeah, you definitely have, and this is the storyteller, and it's through the medium of stories that we're inspired to take that journey. You know, the reason that, for example, Jesus taught in parables is because stories cause us to think critically, cause us to think about, well, you know, who is this person in this story and why are they doing this? And, you know, what, you know, it causes us to ultimately think about things in a deeper way. And ultimately, you know, to enter that journey. So I love this one.
Oh, I do too.
The Grail
What deck
Hermit.
is that?
This one is the Arthurian. This is the Arthurian.
It's beautiful.
And so the Grail Hermit has the secret of the Grail. He knows, you know, where the Holy Grail is. You know, and of course you can't think of somebody like the Grail Hermit without thinking of the wizard Tim in Monty Python's The Holy Grail. But and I like that his fire is actually a fire. That's kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
So you can make a hermit's light in your backyard with your fire pit. All right, so here we're getting into.
Oh yes, I love the bathtub one. I was going to tell you.
Yeah.
I looked at that one.
So this is quite literally, you know, out in the woods, you know, trying to follow the path. So really the hermit experience is very much, if we think about the classic scene in Empire Strikes Back, right? Which is ultimately, which is the really the pinnacle of the original trilogy of Star Wars, is that scene when Luke is on Dagobah with Yoda and it's dark and he sees the cave and he feels pulled into this cave, and he grabs his lightsaber and Yoda tells him, well, you won't need that in there. He said, well, what do I bring in? He said the only thing that's going in with you is what you bring with you. And so he goes into the cave, and inside the cave is Darth Vader, and he and Darth Vader start fighting, and they fight and everything, and he cuts off Darth Vader's head, and the mask explodes, and it's Luke's face under the mask. That's the work of the hermit. That's the baptizing of the cat, right? That Luke had to face the fact, his ultimate fear, which his ultimate fear is that he is Darth Vader, that he is capable of being as evil and as Darth Vader, right? And then by facing that fear, he crosses another threshold, right? But he had to go into that cave. He had to do that alone, right? He had to go into that cave to do that. And so this, in a sense, is like that. You know, this character is following the pull to go into that space. But this is like really great, because I know people who do this every day. right? I know people that first thing they do after work is like smoke a bowl and like take a shower, or smoke a bowl and go for a jog and then take a shower. But anyway, it looks like that, you know, it's ultimately this, you know, it's and it's that lighter side of the hermit. It's that self-healing side of the hermit, you know. It's that reminder to take time for ourselves that we were talking about. You know, and this of course is in a witchy context. So she's in her bathtub and she's got her candles and she's got all of her witchy books and all the stuff. Now I would personally be terrified of like splashing water on all the books and ruining them. That would,
Yeah, me too.
that would not be, you know, but this is an art, you know, this is an ideal image, you know, this is art. So and interestingly, the color is green, which is the color of
Your heart chakra.
Yeah. Here's our this is from the Druid craft. So fairly traditional rendition here. I honestly like the Tarot of the Divines Druid version better. And then here we get into our esoteric tarot with the Rosetta Tarot, the Serpent Staff. Again, the serpent element is related to the implication of the sperm, the you know, and then we have I forget what this is called, but Moline relates it to the coiling of the intestines, and the intestines are related to Virgo, which is the astrological association of the hermit. It's interesting that the top of the staff has that egg shape, and remember that they're repeating of the egg shape in this deck, the whole that egg of creation, that egg of potentiality. Of course, we have the light that's shining out in all the different directions. The wheat is in reference to Virgo. That again, that virgin energy potential. Specifically Persephone. It's in reference to Persephone. And wow, I've never noticed this before. He's standing
The
in a
labyrinth.
Yeah.
But okay, so I'm still perplexed as why Pollock doesn't mention anything about Virgo in her book. She mentions only Saturn.
So Pollock
And
Pollock in her book strictly goes on Rider-Waite. This is Moline goes on Rider-Waite and Crowley, and her decks are in the Crowley tradition. So
why do we have a three-headed dog?
Cerberus.
Cerberus.
Yeah, guardian of the underworld. Again, reference to Persephone. And also in reference to that too, they mentioned the folk song, which I didn't realize it was a folk song. I just knew of it from Jethro Tull, which is John Barleycorn Must Die. It's a British folk song, but about the wheat or the corn that grows up in reference to Persephone. And even here we have wheat here too. Yeah, wheat. Again, the serpent staff. He's actually going. It looks like he's going into the underworld. So his light is going to serve to illuminate one's journey, right? I did not have time to read up on this. This is Rachel Pollock's own card from her deck. I love that she has the turtle here. Generally speaking, the turtle is mother energy. Yeah, but I don't know. CJ, did she mention anything about the
she mentioned her card one time, and it was very brief. So I didn't really, and since I didn't have the card,
She didn't mention the turtle or the sun or the moon. She did mention, of course, that the light, the wisdom, and what it represents, you only can achieve that after you've gone through the door, and that light there is a kind of wisdom that other hermits have left, so left for you to learn from.
Oh, okay.
yes, I remember that now.
That piece, yeah. And so it's that kind of sort of the tradition, right? So the hermits learn from previous hermit knowledge.
So we get that it goes back to what we saw in the Light Seer. Is that there was that lantern that was there, but the lantern stayed at the base of the mountain.
She was beyond the door and beyond the lantern even. That Baba Yaga? Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. It says it right there.
Shadowscapes, of course. Very beautiful.
This has to be one of my favorite Shadowscapes cards.
They're so pretty. What are those? Are those snow geese?
They are loons.
Loons.
And they represent peace, tranquility, and their calls are that of the ancient wisdom calling to you. That mystery.
That is very beautiful.
That is a beautiful card. Wow. All the movement.
Introspective solitude, withdrawing from the world, giving and receiving guidance, both. Could represent an inspirational friend or teacher who helps you to illuminate the secrets in your own mind. Something about the mysterious can be made clear with the proper light to shine on the situation. And that was coming out of what they wrote for Shadowscapes. And then the loons with the peace and tranquility and call, as they call, it's this ancient wisdom you hear echoing across this space and time kind of continuum. I'm putting my own spin on this a little.
No, that's good. That's awesome. What about Baba Yaga?
Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga.
I know her from Miyazaki, from Spirited Away, which Heather, you have kids, you've probably seen Spirited Away. It's now on Disney Plus. I recommend everybody watch it. All the Miyazaki films are on Disney Plus. Probably the best thing on Disney Plus besides Star Wars. But so what do you know of her legend at all? Because I don't, other than Spirited Away, I really don't know.
I mean, she really is. I mean, Baba Yaga is one of the crones. One of the crone goddesses, the crone figures. I believe based in a Russian folktale.
Yeah, I knew she was Russian.
Yeah. And I don't really remember. I mean, I know that she had a house, and the house is on those chicken legs, right? So she had this kind of very mystical house. I don't remember. I mean, she is sort of portrayed as this kind of witch figure. Let me see, I'll pull up. And then Baba Yaga.
There's a very early D&D adventure based on her.
On her?
Yeah.
Let's see what I can come up.
Yeah, from the 70s.
She appears as a ferocious looking old woman. She lived in a hut, usually described as standing on chicken legs. She may help or hinder those that encounter her or seek her out. It's sort of the Wikipedia down and dirty.
Right.
You know. She may play a maternal role, play a maternal role, and has associations with forest wildlife. She can sometimes be a donor, a villain, or may be altogether ambiguous. Um, Sometimes, gosh, she has a lot of variation, right? So sometimes she comes across depictions are great, very greatly across tale, sometimes ranging from a child-eating monster to helping a protagonist find his missing bride.
Hmm.
Hi, Heather. Did Heather go?
Yeah, I think she draw.
I think she most, okay. Yay! Maybe she'll be a regular with us. She can put a little to bed.
Yeah, she told me that she wants to try to make more time for stuff that she likes. So
Oh, good. I
yeah.
love it. And then let's see. They sometimes see her as a cloud, a moon, death in some cases, winter, snake, bird, pelican, or earth goddess. Um, Certainly a matriarchal in eight. I'm not sure. Ancestres. What does that?
Say it again.
Ancestress? Is that
And yeah, I think so.
a matriarchal ancestress? Female initiator, a phallic mother, or archetypal image. Um, so in terms of her sort of crone state, and I definitely can see that association in terms of the hermit and this, that she's enigmatic and sometimes often exhibits striking ambiguity, may also be a nice reference to the hermit, right? Because you have to go internal to be able to
Mhm.
kind of find the thing, whatever it is that which you're seeking out. And then, so I can certainly see those associations with with her. So again, I think what Pollock was writing, that many of the sort of more modern interpretations of the hermit are kind of relying on witch imagery and crone imagery. Um, and so definitely I can see that there. I'm sorry, guys. I had to. Oh, are you still recording, Kurt?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't see the little recording button. That's why I was wondering. Maybe
Oh no, it's on. It's recording.
it's recording.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Oh, I can't see it because I had the chat on. That's why. I apologize for having to step away for so long. I had to take care of something that sort of popped up, and I'm like, oh
Oh,
no, I
that's
can't do that right now. So sorry. Apologize.
so. I'm just looking to see if. So apparently, this is the light of Ra. It's
Okay.
basically this is the is the idea, the
The light
shining
of
down of
Ra.
the light of Ra. Um,
Ugh.
um, and then we, and I said earlier that there's an Isis meditation where, you know, one approaches the light of Ra, but the light of Ra essentially, if one gets too close to it, it can essentially disintegrate somebody because it's just so intense. And so Isis, actually protects the person so that the person can receive the light
Mm,
without, being,
without being
yeah,
devoured or
yeah,
disintegrated
yeah.
by it.
And so this is the light um shining out here, and I trying to see what other images there are in this. um but
Mm-hmm.
and then this tarot designer associates the hermit with the full moon in Capricorn. So but this tarot artist is specifically concerned with Egyptian astrology, which is somewhat different. I mean, and I don't know a whole lot about it, but they have some different interpretations and so forth. I have a book on it. I just haven't gotten that far. But that is basically our
Is
gallery.
that the gallery?
That is the gallery.
Go back and rewatch the other cards.
Yeah.
I could hear you guys, but I was like, I can't see.
Yeah. The mice are having fun in my apartment.
Oh no.
Around, yes.
in the walls.
Then the walls, on the floor.
Okay.
Like, yeah, Jerry and his cousins and
Cousins are hanging out
brothers,
with you.
everybody, yes. So.
I rented a house in Southern Illinois. And
Oh yeah. You're gonna get mice in Southern Illinois, yeah.
And there was it was a couple of mice. It was just like, oh my goodness. It was the first time I'd ever like encountered mice in the house.
Illinois was the first time I ever encountered mice.
Yeah. It's like 20, it's like what, all of 27 or something like that. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, where I lived very recently before that, it had been a cornfield. So
oh yeah. And I was right. There was a cornfield right across the street from where I was renting.
So
I was
we're
in
gonna
that house for 6 months, but not because of the mice. Because I was able to find an apartment closer to the campus, and I was living in Murfreesboro, a town over. So, yeah.
So we're gonna conclude our recording for the evening.
Oh yes. Sorry about the mouse story.
Oh
My
no,
mouse story.
that's good. The mouse can lead one to the hermit as well. Lead one to the light as well.
Yeah.
All right. The mouse is Ganesh's best friend.
That's right.
Lord Ganesh is not afraid of the mouse. That's his best friend. And the British got that wrong. Elephants are not afraid of mice. All right. Yes.